Hello and welcome. This is the Insurance Pro Blog Podcast. I am Brandon Roberts.
And I am Brantley Whitley.
And you are listening to the internet's favorite podcast about life insurance and other life insurance things.
That's right. Not today, but...
Well, other life insurance things is on that
That's
list.
true. That comes under the heading.
That's why I threw that in there real quick.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we
doing
thought
some quick thinking.
We'd give everyone a gift, since it's just a few days before Christmas. So.
It is. It is indeed. Which maybe we would have looked at the calendar as we were wrapping up last week's episode to figure out if this episode was going to happen, but we don't do that. We just indiscriminately publish these things.
Well, for the record,
why not?
The one after this one probably won't happen. So
that's a really good point, because based on the recording day of these things, I can imagine that being an issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, as we live figure out some administrative things that none of you needed to listen to, let's get into today's episode.
Let's do it.
So today we could talk about annuities. We could talk about SPIAs specifically.
Yeah. And
we looking at some research that was published just last month in the Journal of Financial Services Professionals, speaking to a relatively new change to the way annuities count for RMDs, or SPIAs count rather for RMDs, and revisiting everybody's favorite withdrawal rule from the 90s, the old 4% Bengen rule.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
Everybody's at the edge of their seat. Secure
this
Act
is actually interesting, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yep.
So you guys hang in there.
Yeah. Yep. And we're not just saying that like we normally would. We really mean it this time.
No, we're actually interested in this.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lengthy, very, very, very nerdy discussion about this whole thing, like 30 minutes before we started recording. Probably should have hit the record button for that instead, but...
We had to debate on how nerdy we wanted to be in this podcast, so... Secure Act 2.0 brought about a significant change to the way RMDs work with SPIAs. Mm-hmm.
A very good
what year
change.
Secure 2.0? This is those details I should have looked up beforehand, but I don't. Was it 2020?
2021, 2022? That's we don't have a, what's his name, Jamie or something?
22.
Okay.
It was enacted in late 2022.
Okay. So that's when it came about. What changed? Let's do that first. So lots of things, but we're talking about SPIAs here. So the big change that came to SPIAs in the past, if you wanted to take money from a qualified account, so let's just use the example of an IRA, qualified IRA. So this will be taxable when it's distributed. If you take a SPIA, or if you take some of that money and buy a SPIA, let's just say 50% of it for simple sake, you will reduce the RMD that gets calculated on your IRA balance by the amount that goes to the SPIA. So the remaining sum will then be used to calculate that year's RMD. The money that goes to the SPIA will automatically be assumed satisfied for RMD purposes when the distribution comes from the SPIA. The problem that existed prior to Secure Act 2.0 for people is the income distributed from the SPIA didn't count for satisfying the RMD that you would calculate on the rest of the money that didn't go to the SPIA.
Right. So it was just the corpus, basically, reduced the total RMD amount.
Yeah. So,
but the income itself did not count as an RMD.
Exactly. So what you got was a reduction in the RMD technically, but you also had a forced distribution from the SPIA that would not count towards the remaining RMD calculation. So yes, it reduced the reportable RMD, but it also made the distributions and taxable income that you were going to recognize generally increase for most people.
You know what I immediately thought of when I was thinking about this was it's kind of like when people go, when you own a business as you and I do, and they go, well, that's a tax write-off. And you're like, well, that doesn't mean it doesn't cost me anything. That just,
right. It doesn't mean you net.
It just reduces my taxable income. It's not a dollar for dollar. It's not like I spend $10,000, therefore I save $10,000 in taxes. That's not how that works at all.
Precisely. Here's what the Secure Act 2.0 did to help this whole situation. Now, when you buy a SPIA with qualified money, there is moving forward, a value that will be assigned to that'll count towards all of your qualified assets to figure out your RMD. But all of your income from the SPIA now counts as a distribution for satisfying the RMD.
Right.
So you don't necessarily get the reduction per se. It would be reduced to some degree, but you don't get the same reduction necessarily, but you do get to take the entirety of the SPIA income to satisfy the RMD, which net now brings most people to a lower need to withdraw money in addition to the SPIA, provided that they have sufficient money going to the SPIA. If you're 5% of your IRA portfolio, probably not going to be enough. But if you're taking half of it and buying a SPIA, that's more than likely going to cover all of your RMD for years to come.
Right.
So that's the change that happened, and it makes SPIAs substantially more attractive from an RMD taxable income point of view now.
Right.
The rough reduction in terms of income you would have to recognize with the new Secure Act 2.0 rules versus the old ones, if we're, again, splitting it 50-50, about 73% fewer dollars being forced out of your IRAs at age 73.
That's a pretty big deal.
Big deal. Yes. So we get that as a sort of boost to the attractiveness of single premium immediate annuities. Mm-hmm. Probably should have mentioned that at some point before now. That's what we're talking about.
We'll just call them SPIAs.
Going, what the hell is a SPIA? So that's what it is. It's an income annuity. It has no cash value. It just creates income.
Right.
So that, along with a reevaluation of the 4% withdrawal rate rule, was evaluated in the most recent publish of the Journal of Financial Services Professionals. So the reevaluation here is one that says, well, okay, since the 90s, basically, when it was first published in this exact same journal, the conventional wisdom regarding safe withdrawal rates from your retirement portfolio was 4%, with an adjustment for inflation in subsequent years. And what was shown in that published research paper back in the 90s was using market data up to that point, mm-hmm. and assuming a portfolio that was equally split between stocks and bonds. That was the maximum, or that was the safe max withdrawal rate. So the maximum that you could withdraw from and pretty much have peace of mind that you would not run out of money prior to 30 years.
Right.
So, okay, fine.
That was the thing that everyone latched onto forever since then.
Yes, that's if you've been wondering why everybody says 4% and you haven't listened to previous Insurance Pro Blog podcast episodes, you now know.
Yep.
That's where it came from. So the revisit here, especially in the context of these new rules that make SPIAs more attractive, is can we now push this higher, get more income and or get more time where we are not running out of money? Mm-hmm. Because when it comes to the 4% rule, 30 years is a decent amount of time. But if we look at the analysis, what we're finding these days is that we have nearly a 20% failure rate by the time someone would reach age 95, and a 50% failure rate by the time somebody reaches age 100.
Right.
So 1 out of 5 people across a broad range of retirees would be entirely broke under the 4% withdrawal rule by the time they reach 95.
Right.
And half of them would be completely broke if they made it to age 100. And I do realize that those are fairly advanced ages, but they are attainable ages by a rapidly growing number of people these days.
Yeah.
So the challenge becomes, can we create the same or better income and reduce this risk? Can we take the unlikely-ish and undesirable scenario of running out of money all the way to zero?
Right.
And the answer is yes.
And I should say, because the added benefit is increased legacy value as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because one of the issues with owning a single premium immediate annuity is it has no cash value. It doesn't really have much of a legacy value to it because I am trading in the dollars for income that is guaranteed for the rest of my life. There are a couple of refinements that you can always make to that with refund of premium, for example. So if you buy a SPIA with $500,000 of money and you die 6 months later, you have not recovered all of the money that you used to buy the SPIA.
Right.
So one strategy is to buy that with a refund of your initial premium provision that in most cases comes as an installment of the continuation of your income. So the insurance company will continue to pay a named beneficiary that same income until the sum of all payments reaches $500,000.
Yep. That's the most common option that we see exercised nowadays.
Yep. So the analysis here was taking half of the money and buying a single premium immediate annuity, and then taking that remaining 50% and putting somewhere between 80 and 90% of it in stocks and the rest of it in bonds.
Right.
And comparing how that would work income production wise to the 4% rule, and basically where we see a 100% success rate up to age 100.
Right.
So what we find is that the 4% rule on average lifetime, so I realize they're using $1 million, I should point out, as the initial account balance. So the average lifetime total income per year produced by the 4% rule was $68,600.
Mm-hmm.
Average income over the lifetime of an individual when using the SPIA in combination with stocks and bonds was $80,000 a year.
Right.
So substantially higher than what the 4% rule distributed over the lifetime.
Was it let me ask a question I should know the answer to, but don't, and just thought of it. Does that $80,000 represent the SPIA income plus some income being withdrawn from the?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yep, it does.
I figured it had to mathematically, but.
Yep. Now, the income is higher with the SPIA. The failure rate, so the risk of running out of money up to age 100 is 0. And because half of the money sits in a SPIA and half does not, we still have legacy money left over.
Right.
Now, the 4% rule scenario did on average have a higher legacy value. Right. $894,000 compared to $500,000 of legacy value when we split between the SPIA and stocks and bonds.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to, the research didn't do this, but one thing we could argue is some further refinement to account for the higher income is necessary here. In other words, how do we account for the fact that we were collecting more income from the SPIA stock bond option?
Yeah.
And is that higher income offsetting that lower legacy value? That's an important consideration.
Net, which provides greater value over the time frame, over the 30-year period.
Yep. And more than likely, if we look at what the 4% rule gives us and we match that to the SPIA stocks bond, in other words, we would reduce the distribution of some stocks and bonds, we might end up with a higher legacy value.
Right.
Because that side of the equation can grow more rapidly because we're not taking withdrawals against it as aggressively because all we're doing is matching the income that the 4% rule gave us.
Right. But that wasn't the purpose of this study. This was just to look at, is there any scenario where we could have a 0% chance of running out of money?
Yeah. Can we beat the 4% rule? Which and beating that really is, can we run these scenarios and reduce the risk of running out of money to 0? And or can we provide more income? The answer is yes on both counts.
Right.
Something else to note, again, on the subject of, age 95 is a long ways off. When the research for the 4% rule was originally completed and published, the average retirement age in the United States was 57 years old.
And that was in 94?
It was like early
93.
to mid 90s.
Yeah.
Early to mid 90s. Today, as this research is publishing, the average retirement age in the United States is 63.
And that's going to creep up even more.
It is going to creep up, but notice that it's not creeping up nearly as fast as improvements to mortality are.
Right. True.
We're talking about a 30-year time span between the original 4% publication and what's going on today. And our average retirement age is not changing all that substantially.
Yep.
And 63 is the mathematically calculated average. There are a number of people who are retiring actually 59, 60, and 61.
Yeah.
So there is a reasonably good chance that some of them will make it 30 plus years in retirement if they retire that early.
Yep.
And they will need a plan that can reduce the risk of running out of money to zero. And the 4% rule was only ever intended to produce that income for a 30-year period and have high confidence in still having money at the end of 30 years.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, what do we make of this? Everybody's got to buy a SPIA these days?
Well, no. But I think now we're switching away from the academic side of this to the practical side of this.
Yeah.
I know that you and I have talked to lots more people about SPIAs than those who actually go through with buying SPIAs.
This is true.
And I think that needs to change. Not just for our own benefit, but for their benefit. You and I have long made the case that so much of this depends on a person. We tend to, in the industry, generalize retirement planning advice, very much so.
Yep.
And you and I know from working with a wide array of people over our combined nearly 30 years or 40 years, I guess. 30. I'm almost been in this 30. I still want to think I'm like in my 30s. That people's vision of what retirement looks like is vastly different from one person to another. And
this is true.
And you and I are very careful we don't judge people. Like I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to tiptoe around this. Retirement planning advice, the sort of community, quote unquote, of which there isn't really, but the consensus tends to be very dogmatic.
There's this.
You have to do it this way.
Yeah.
This is how it works. These are the rules you follow. And we have a much more fluid understanding. We try to tailor and this is not an infomercial. I guess our whole podcast is kind of an infomercial, but we try to tailor.
So not this moment, the whole thing.
Yeah. But we try to tailor the solution to what the person wants.
Mm-hmm.
Like what they actually want, not what we think is best for them.
That's a fantastically good point. Because something that needs to be mentioned more often, there was a podcast, there maybe still is, that one of us may or may not have been involved in, that very last episode that was published was all about the fact that there is not a singular American retirement.
Right.
And that needs to be talked about more frequently inside the financial planning and retirement circles.
Yeah.
Because you are very correct. There's this fake paradigm that it all works a specific way. There are a very clear guide of things you must do, and you do those things, and then you retire.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it goes this way. And that, having done this for the years that I've done it, the years that you've done it, our combined conversations about everything that we've seen together and apart, is there is no average.
Right.
There is no, there's commonality in the sense of certain things people do, but you could take a neighborhood of individuals who are retired and you would find a lot of variety.
Yeah.
In the way that they planned for and executed and now live in retirement.
Correct. Absolutely. And I think going back to the dogma for a second, the dogma of retirement planning is easy to sell because it's what people want to believe. this is just life experience speaking.
Yeah.
People want prescriptive advice.
Yes.
I think human nature seeks certainty. And so, now this is turning into a self-help podcast, but I think people desire certainty.
The book is available at.
And so if you seem authoritative and you write down, these are the set of rules that you have to follow for an effective retirement plan.
Yeah.
And it gets published and, spread across the internet, then it just becomes a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sort of plan. And people latch onto that. And I guess as general advice, it's not bad. Kind of like the stuff Dave Ramsey says, not bad, generally speaking. There are some very specific things that don't make a lot of sense. But I think going back to this research, I mean, essentially what these guys did was say, instead of taking a 50-50 stock bond portfolio, which nowadays, let's just bring it forward to the practical application of that, of how most people would execute that. They bought broad market exchange traded funds that were bond focused and equity focused.
Yep.
And so that's how they would do it. So instead of having the fixed income exposure, they just said, what if we just put all the fixed income into a SPIA? And, or effectively all of it. I realize it wasn't all necessarily.
Yep.
But effectively that's what they did. And that removes a ton of sequence of returns risk from a portfolio.
And several others.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of risks associated with debt investment that intermediate investors don't understand.
Yeah.
And all of it goes away.
Yep.
When it comes to a SPIA. Because there's a number of things that the SPIA is going to do, right, wrong, or indifferently, that kind of protect you from yourself in many respects.
Yep.
That does not exist when you invest in bonds. The air quotes are going on. That's our favorite thing to do here. Because most people are not buying bonds themselves. And even if they did buy bonds themselves, a number of those risks are still on the table.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you and I have several clients who effectively live on SPIA income. Do we get a lot of calls concerned about anything?
No.
From those people?
No. Because it turns out when you get to retirement and you just have the income that you need to go live the life you want to live, you don't spend that much time worrying about what else is going on. I mean, some people still have a little bit of that in them to watch the markets and stuff like that. That's fine. But when you have sufficient income to live life comfortably or peacefully, peace of mind, that's weird. Those other things kind of go a little bit away. They fade. They're not as top of mind.
When you know that you're only 30 days away from another $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
Landing in your bank account. No matter what is going on in the world.
Right. You're not that concerned. It's kind of like there are certain occupations that have very solid job security. And so when economic times get a little scary, they don't worry as much.
Right.
Because they're just going to get paid. And they're going to probably still get called in to go to work.
Yep.
When you live that life in retirement, which is easy to do, but not everybody takes the advice, it removes a lot of the worry about retirement.
Yeah.
And look, it can be SPIAs, it can be other types of guaranteed annuity income fashions. I think that today's SPIA discussion has a lot to do with the Secure Act, which didn't change the rules really for other style of annuities with guaranteed income features. So you could still do the same thing with those. You just don't get quite the same RMD benefit.
Right. No, all the Secure 2.0 Act did was make what we're talking about a viable path.
Yes. A much more stomachable in terms of the tax issues that surrounded SPIAs prior. And I would even argue there's been a lot of pressure.
It slows the erosion of that other 500,000.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
It does. And I would even argue that there's been an immense amount of pressure put on lawmakers, both state level and federal level to start to come up with plans to incorporate guaranteed income into 401ks.
Yeah.
Because people are coming to realize that the process of transitioning into retirement and now instead of accumulating assets, distributing assets is tricky.
Yep.
And it's not something people have kind of immediate understanding of. Financial advisors should have a better understanding than they do, but sadly a lot fall short.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one that people struggle with.
Yeah.
And
I would be in support of that.
Yeah.
In having some guaranteed income options for people, whether it's in their 401k or some other sort of plan that can be employer sponsored or easily, signed up for. I've been saying that for years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a missing part in the annuity market, and probably insurance companies are always in favor of making money. So if they thought they could make money at it, they would do it. The problem is they on an individual distribution basis, it's hard for them to get enough to make it profitable, probably. But if it could be adopted through policy, then they could definitely make a go at it. I was reading something in the last day or two that was talking about Gen X, which is my generation. The oldest of us is approaching 60.
Yep.
At this point. And I won't get into all the details, the numbers, specifics per se, but basically that most people who are on the front edge of Gen X, and probably all of Gen X for that matter, are way behind on retirement savings.
Okay.
Versus where they should be or where they would feel comfortable being. Like several $100,000 short, probably. And, this is one of the points I brought up, I think, in past podcasts, is Gen X is the first generation that will reach retirement age, if you want to call that 65 or whatever it is. Let's call it 63, since you said that's the average nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Who never had the benefit of any sort of pension.
Yeah.
Because we all started working, if you work in the private sector, we all started work in the 90s.
Yeah.
Full-time work. And so all of your retirement is based solely on the money that you put away versus, along with any company match, obviously.
But it's been driven into the defined contribution plan style of retirement planning, largely
exclusive for almost exclusive
Gen X, way higher percentage than was the case for boomers.
Yeah, and a lot of boomers will make the point, which is right, but doesn't tell the whole story, that they don't have a pension, but a lot of them did when they first started working, and those plans got rolled up and rolled over into their 401ks.
Yep.
At some point.
Yep.
So, there was some big seeding event of several $100,000 that occurred in their 401k that wasn't due to their own contributions.
Yep. I've
seen that pretty commonly.
I have met people along my travels, and I think you have described situations similar to this, where they were part of a pension, and it could have been a defunct pension, so the benefit wasn't growing a ton, but it's still, even a defunct pension in a lot of cases for certain companies stuck around. So if you wanted the income benefit, you could get it. Not all of them, but some of them did.
Yep.
I met people who decided, no, I'm going to roll out of the pension.
Yep.
Because that's an option in a lot of cases. Because it's $1 million that I can roll out. And I feel that I can manage that better than the pension income would be.
Right.
And they discovered after they did it that, it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And they start looking to reverse what they did and go back into something that's more guaranteed income because they don't want the task of dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that's understandable. Why would you want to spend the last couple decades of your life fussing over what happened with the latest read on employment?
Right.
Or retail or CPI.
Right.
Or what crypto's doing. Think about this. There are people who retired not that long ago who are managing their retirement accounts, and they now have to worry about the breakdown in crypto, which is something that really didn't even exist, at least as far as they were concerned, when they retired.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
a whole new category of things you have to fuss over.
Yep.
At least in the sense of I got to keep my eye on that, because if that thing tanks, then that means the whole market's probably going to go with it.
Right.
And I don't even understand why it moves one way or the other.
I've never bought any. Don't plan to. Don't know anything about it.
Like, things change and they evolve. And look, if you're the type of person who likes to be malleable, good for you. But I know a lot of people who by the time they get to 70, they're not really that into new things anymore.
Right. I'm not trying to learn how to manage new things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that.
I get that the investment industry wants you to believe that you can do it. You should want to do it. That's a virtuous thing. That's a way of showing that you can stay nimble. Yeah, that's cool. I understand. But there is a certain degree of deciding, I've done enough. I've paid my dues. I just want to live my life.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to use the money that I saved to do that.
Yep.
And that's what guaranteed income brings to the table for you.
And circling back to the point, I think more people should be seriously considering it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think one of the problems in years past that we've had with people looking at it is they just didn't like the numbers. It was like, that's not enough money. Well,
yeah. I
don't mean this to be patronizing or condemning in any way, but here comes the but, right?
I'm going to erase everything I just said.
Typically speaking, when you're looking at income sort of vehicles like annuities, the problem is not that they're not paying enough. It's that you're spending too much.
Or you don't have enough to meet what you need.
I mean, but not having enough doesn't make the money last long. I mean, anyway, that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, if the SPIAs are generally going to create more income, right? So if the SPIA income isn't going to do it, then
yeah,
there isn't anything else that is. Like that's the problem.
Yeah.
So, it has been the case that and look, we're not alone on the SPIA recommendation. Like, the majority of retirement planning is in agreement on this. It's a rare moment because we disagree on a lot of stuff, but everybody's pretty much on board with the fact that, hey, look, you should take some of your money and buy a SPIA.
Mm-hmm.
Because
that's only happened in the last few years that the profession as a whole has come around to it. And it's thanks to research like this and some other people have done as well, just proving it. I mean, to me, this is sort of validating this research because it empirically proves what you and I have been trying to say.
Yeah.
Experientially.
Yeah. Now, some people are going to take issue with the fact that, well, if I do that, then that cash just goes away. I don't have it anymore. And yep, that's true. There's good and bad to that. Probably more good, just in practical living sense than bad. But that is an element of preparing yourself for the fact that there's only so many years left, which is a difficult thing for people to think about anyway.
Yeah.
And you got to have a plan that can provide the income that you need. And you do want to have some degree of certainty behind it. Yeah. Now, look, if you spend $50,000 a year and your 401k balance is $20 million, that you're going to be fine either way. It's okay. Not met too many of those people in my life.
No,
I'm sure some of them exist, but they're not the majority. So
I can count on no fingers the number of people that I've met that are in that position.
So there's that. But for a lot of people, having some element of guaranteed income is going to most likely long-term create more wealth and income for them than they figured would happen based on their ability to take other money and let it grow.
And it's going to improve the quality of life.
Yep.
One day we'll be doing a study about how people who had SPIAs live longer. They had less cardiovascular distress. So
it's going to be a hard one to sort the data on. I'm going to have to convince the hospitals out there that they need a few more questions on the questionnaire. I think there might be some people who are a little resistant to
share that information,
answer some of those questions, but I guess we can try.
Yep, that is true. All right.
Okay. That's good enough for today, I think.
Good enough for the year?
Well, that's a possibility. I am Brandon Roberts.
And I am Brantley Whitley.
And we will see you again soon. When exactly will just be a surprise for everyone, including us.